Tick-tock, tick-tock. That's the sound they love. The sound of a clock counting down as they watch, waiting for you to fall. They whisper. They laugh. They scheme. They mark your end on calendars, hoping your failure will make their own mediocrity more bearable. But here's the secret: they never understood the clock they set for your downfall. It doesn't run your life. No. It fuels your rebellion. Their timing becomes your ignition. You see, they bet everything on you breaking. But they forgot one thing: you don't play by their rules. You don't follow their clock. And if they think they can cage you in their expectations, they're in for a show that rewrites their script. People believe they can predict your failure. They sit there, armed with their so-called wisdom, convinced that life is some formula they've mastered. They analyze your moves, calculate your weaknesses, and come to one inevitable conclusion: you're going to fall. Not only do they expect it, but they also crave it. It makes them feel smarter, stronger, more in control. But here's the truth: they refuse to admit life doesn't follow their timetable, and neither do you. The illusion of control is their favorite tool, their safety blanket. It's how they make sense of a world they secretly fear. If they can predict your failure, they believe they can control their own. It's a comforting delusion, but a delusion nonetheless. They'll watch you closely, like vultures circling an injured prey, timing every stumble and fumble as if it confirms their narrative. It's not just a prediction, it's a form of power. To them, controlling the story of your downfall means asserting their superiority. I saw it coming, they'll say, smug and self-satisfied. But what they fail to see, what they will never see until it's too late, is that this power is an illusion. It's as fragile as glass, and it shatters the moment you refuse to play your part in their little game. Their obsession with timing your fall is rooted in fear. Your potential, your ambition, it terrifies them. They may never admit it, but every time they try to measure your limits, what they're really doing is reassuring themselves that you can't surpass them. The idea of you breaking free, rising higher than they ever dared to dream, is a nightmare they can't afford to confront. So they cling to their clocks and schedules, convincing themselves that your failure is inevitable, that it's only a matter of time. But the beauty of life, the beauty of your story, is that it isn't scripted by their fears or fantasies. Their illusion of control blinds them to the reality of who you are. They see only what they want to see: a series of flaws, vulnerabilities, and weaknesses that fit neatly into their expectations. They miss the fire, the resilience, the unshakable spirit that lies beneath. They underestimate you because it's easier than facing the truth that they're powerless to predict your path. Their need for control is a reflection of their own insecurities, their own failures projected onto you. And every second they spend timing your fall is a second they waste. A second they could have spent building something real for themselves. But their biggest mistake, their fatal flaw, is believing that life plays fair. They think their calculations, their timing, their predictions are grounded in some unchanging truth. They don't understand that life is chaos, that the most powerful moments are the ones that defy all logic and expectation. When they set their clocks for your downfall, they're setting themselves up for disappointment. Because life, like you, has no obligation to meet their expectations. And when the moment comes, when the clock strikes and nothing happens when you don't fall but rise, instead they'll realize too late that their illusion of control was never anything more than a fantasy. Your resilience is a force they never anticipated, a quiet storm brewing beneath the surface of their assumptions. They build narratives about you, ones filled with limitations, doubts, and ceilings that they think you'll never break. These stories aren't crafted by accident, they're deliberate. A way for them to feel comfortable with the idea of your failure. They write scripts where you play the role of someone who crumbles under pressure, and they rehearse the lines they'll use when they say, "I told you so." But resilience isn't something they can measure, let alone predict. It exists outside the lines of their carefully drawn narratives, dismantling their expectations with every step you take. They've always relied on their ability to define others, to put people in neat little boxes that make them easier to control. They take one look at you and decide they've seen all there is to see, that they've mapped out your entire journey based on a handful of moments. They label you based on your past, your mistakes, or the times you stumbled, assuming those labels will stick forever. But they don't account for your ability to evolve, to adapt, to turn every setback into a setup for something greater. That's what resilience does. It grows in the shadows, unnoticed, until it becomes impossible to ignore. The problem with their narratives is that they're built on their own limitations, not yours. When they look at you, they're really projecting their fears, their insecurities, their failures. They assume you can't rise because they never could. They believe your limits are the same as theirs, that your dreams are as fragile as theirs were. But what they don't realize is that you've been feeding off their doubts, using them as fuel to push harder, climb higher, and prove them wrong. Their inability to see past their own limitations blinds them to the truth that your resilience is not just a response to adversity, but a force that thrives on it. Every time they expect you to break, you bend. Every time they think you've reached your limit, you find another gear. It's not just about surviving their doubts or disproving their predictions, it's about thriving in spite of them. Their stories crumble because they can't account for the one thing that defines you, your refusal to give up. Resilience is not loud or flashy. It doesn't announce itself with grand gestures. It's quiet, deliberate, and unrelenting, working in the background while they're too busy watching the surface. They misinterpret your moments of struggle as evidence of weakness, failing to see that those struggles are the very foundation of your strength. They think they've won when you falter, but they don't understand that resilience isn't about never falling, it's about rising every single time. With each fall, you learn. With each failure, you grow. And with every obstacle they place in your path, you find a way to turn it into an opportunity. Their expectations are nothing more than walls, and your resilience is the force that breaks through them, brick by brick. They want you to believe their version of the story, to accept their narrative as truth. But resilience doesn't ask for permission. It doesn't wait for validation or approval. It exists independently of their opinions, thriving in the spaces where they think you're weakest. And while they're busy rewriting the same tired script, you're writing your own story, one that doesn't conform to their rules or follow their expectations. It's a story of persistence, of overcoming, of rising again and again, until their doubts are nothing more than echoes in the distance. While they're busy focusing on your downfall, you're quietly working on something far more profound: your rise. They've got their eyes glued to the moment they think you'll fail, pouring their energy into predicting how and when it will happen. They're so consumed by the drama of your supposed collapse that they miss the quiet, deliberate work you're doing behind the scenes. Timing your failure gives them a sense of control, but what they don't realize is that their obsession is a distraction from your progress, from your resilience, and most importantly, from the power of your timing. Timing is everything, but not in the way they imagine. They believe they've got it all figured out, that your life runs on the same clock as their expectations. They think they know when you'll falter, because they've measured your progress against their own flawed standards. What they don't see is that you're operating on an entirely different timeline, one they can't even begin to comprehend. While they're watching and waiting, you're building brick by brick, piece by piece, moment by moment, until the rise they never anticipated becomes undeniable. The irony is that their timing is often off because it's based on assumptions. They assume you're standing still, that you're stuck in the moment of your last setback. They assume that the person you were yesterday is the person you were today, frozen in their judgment, incapable of growth. But timing is as much about perception as it is about reality, and their perception of you is limited by their inability to see beyond their own biases. They think they've caught you in a downward spiral, but what they're really witnessing is the setup for your ascent. They underestimate the power of preparation, of patience, of working in silence. They see stillness and mistake it for stagnation, never realizing that you're not standing still, you're gathering strength. You understand something they don't. Timing isn't about moving quickly or reacting impulsively. It's about knowing when to act, when to strike, when to unleash everything you've been building. While they're fixated on the wrong moments, you're busy waiting for the right ones. That's the difference between you and them. They react to the surface, you move with intention. Their focus on your fall blinds them to the inevitability of your rise. They don't see the countless hours you've poured into your growth, the sacrifices you've made, the battles you've fought quietly and without applause. They're too busy looking for cracks in your foundation to notice that you're building something unshakable. Timing isn't about following their clock or adhering to their expectations. It's about trusting your process, knowing that every setback, every delay, every moment of doubt is part of a greater plan they can't even begin to understand. What makes your timing powerful is that it's yours. It's not dictated by the opinions of others or the arbitrary deadlines they try to impose. It's not rushed by fear or slowed by doubt. It moves at its own pace, guided by your inner compass and the knowledge that true progress is measured not by how quickly you rise, but by how deeply you root yourself along the way. While they waste their time timing your fall, you're mastering the art of timing your rise, a rise that will catch them completely off guard. Not because it was impossible, but because they never had the vision to see it coming. True power doesn't lie in being seen as strong, it lies in being underestimated. There's a unique advantage in being overlooked, dismissed, and undervalued by those who believe they've got you figured out. They judge you by your quiet moments, by the times you held back, by the times you stumbled. In their minds, those moments define you. They mistake your silence for weakness and your struggles for limits. But what they fail to realize is that underestimation is one of the greatest weapons you can wield. It allows you to operate freely without the weight of their expectations or the burden of their watchful eyes. Being underestimated is a gift. It gives you the room to grow in the shadows, to sharpen your skills, to strengthen your resolve without interference. While they're busy celebrating your perceived shortcomings, you're quietly preparing to shatter their expectations. Their underestimation blinds them, creating a false sense of security. They convince themselves that you'll never pose a threat, that your potential is capped, that you're someone they've already outgrown. They believe they're safe from the competition you represent. But that belief is their greatest mistake, because it leaves them unprepared for what's coming. They look at you and see only the surface. They see the times you struggled to stand, the times you hesitated, the moments when doubt clouded your vision. They never look deeper, never consider what's happening beneath. They don't see the resilience forming in your heart, the lessons being etched into your soul, the fire quietly growing stronger with every obstacle. To them, these are weaknesses, but to you, they're the foundation of an unstoppable force. Underestimation works in your favor because it allows you to rise unnoticed, to work without scrutiny, to build without sabotage. While they're busy underestimating you, they're also overestimating themselves. They start to believe their own illusions, that their strengths are insurmountable, that they're untouchable. They grow complacent, confident in their misjudgments. They focus so much on keeping you in your place that they fail to notice how far you've come, how much you've changed, how close you are to eclipsing their expectations. Their arrogance becomes their blind spot, and your underestimation becomes your shield. The most dangerous weapon you can wield is surprise. When they think they know your limits, you show them something they never saw coming. When they assume you've reached your peak, you break through to new heights. When they believe they've won, you remind them that the game was never over. Their underestimation isn't just a miscalculation, it's a complete misunderstanding of who you are. They don't know your heart, your drive, your capacity for growth. And by the time they realize it, it's too late. They may think they're winning by keeping you in their shadows, but shadows are where greatness is forged. The moments they disregard are the moments where your power is born. They think they're holding you back, but they're really giving you the space to prepare for a rise they'll never see coming. Their inability to recognize your strength doesn't weaken you, it empowers you. It removes the weight of their expectations and gives you the freedom to move at your own pace, to rise in your own time, to strike when you're ready. Underestimation allows you to rewrite the rules, to operate in ways they'll never anticipate. It's not just about proving them wrong. It's about proving yourself right. It's about embracing the power of being underestimated and using it to your advantage. It's about turning their doubts into fuel, their assumptions into stepping stones, and their blind spots into your pathway to greatness. Being underestimated isn't a disadvantage, it's an opportunity to rise on your terms, in your way, when they least expect it. There's an art to surprise, a brilliance in catching them off guard. While they sit comfortably in their assumptions, thinking they've got you all figured out, you're working on something they could never predict. Their expectations become their weakness, their downfall, because they rely too heavily on the idea that they know what's coming. They think your story follows a straight line, that your path is predictable, that your struggles have set the stage for an inevitable conclusion. But what they don't realize is that the best moments, the most transformative comebacks, are the ones no one sees coming. Surprise is a powerful tool, a game changer that flips the narrative. It's not about shocking them for the sake of it, but about building something so profound, so unexpected, that it leaves them speechless. They've spent so much time betting against you, planning for your failure, that they've left themselves vulnerable to the one thing they can't prepare for your rise. They've written their script, rehearsed their lines, and waited for the perfect moment to celebrate your downfall. But what happens when the script doesn't go as planned? What happens when the story they thought they were controlling suddenly takes a turn they never anticipated? They assume they're the audience, sitting in judgment, watching your life play out like a predictable movie. They don't realize that you're the director, the writer, the one who decides how the story unfolds. Their focus on your struggles blinds them to the strength you're building, the lessons you're learning, the moves you're planning. Every time they think they've got you cornered, you're working on a way out. Every time they think they've predicted your next step, you're 3 steps ahead. Their certainty becomes their blind spot, their undoing. There's a beauty in the element of surprise, in keeping your cards close to your chest while they lay all theirs on the table. They assume that silence means defeat, that patience means inaction. They misinterpret your stillness, thinking it's stagnation, when in reality it's strategy. You're not just waiting, you're preparing. You're building something so powerful, so undeniable, that when it finally emerges, it will shake the very foundations of their expectations. The art of surprise isn't about rushing to prove them wrong. It's about choosing the perfect moment to show them how wrong they were. They don't realize that their predictions are based on a version of you that no longer exists. They're judging you by the person you were yesterday, last year, or even further back, ignoring the fact that every day you're evolving, growing, becoming something greater. While they're stuck in the past, you're focused on the future, on crafting a rise that defies every assumption they've made. Their inability to see beyond the surface, beyond the version of you they think they know, leaves them unprepared for what's coming. Surprise isn't just about catching them off guard, it's about reclaiming the narrative. It's about reminding them that you're not here to fit into their boxes or follow their scripts. You're here to break the mold, to redefine what's possible, to show them that the limitations they tried to place on you were never real. The power of surprise is in its ability to completely disrupt their sense of control, to take everything they thought they knew and turn it on its head. They spend so much time watching, waiting, and analyzing, believing they're one step ahead. But surprise flips the script, putting you in control of the story they thought was theirs to dictate. It's the ultimate act of rebellion, a way to reclaim your power and remind them that they never truly understood who you are or what you're capable of. While they're busy focusing on your past and trying to predict your future, you're creating a moment so extraordinary, so unexpected, that it leaves no room for doubt. So let them set their clocks, let them mark their dates. Let them whisper in their dark little corners. They'll never understand that their timing is irrelevant. Because your rise isn't bound by their schedules, their opinions, or their limits. It's yours. And when it happens, it will be the kind of moment they'll never forget. Tick-tock. The clock still ticks. But it's not counting down to your fall anymore. It's counting down to your unstoppable, undeniable, glorious rise.